I was making it more difficult than it is. Thank you.
Are you able to hear us, Marvin?
Okay, so we've got Marvin is there. We should.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning, Marvin. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So before the meeting starts, I'm just gonna have to mute everything so you won't be able to hear anything from us quite yet.
Bruce, how's the family in Blue Ridge?
Oh, and,
They moved
just,
to Edmonton.
Oh, now I can hear something.
Good morning, Walter. Thank you for joining us. We just did our call to order. So you'll be able to hear us for a minute, but then we're going to put you on mute and just while we go through the minutes, and then you guys are up for the presentation.
Okay, adoption of the agenda, any additions, things like that?
Yes, I just had a quick, just 1 second. There was just a date in the, oh, my apologies, adoption of agenda, no, we're good.
I was wondering where that was going.
Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Tricia makes the motion. Any questions? All in favor? Passed. Then we go to adoption of the minutes.
And certainly, as everyone had noticed, and as Art had talked to me prior to the meeting, I did check a box inadvertently on the attendance, so we do have to change that Art was not at the last meeting. And no, he did not make any motions.
Thank you.
And I just had to add in section 2.1, just a date correction, the agenda for the February 15th, 2022. So it should be. That's all I have.
Would you like to make a motion to the amended? Okay, Alicia. Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Passed.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, well, that brings us to our delegation who is joining us virtually this morning. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to our Economic Development Committee, Walter. And Walter, I apologize. I know I always pronounce your last name wrong no matter how many times I hear it. And I know the G is silent. Prihas, I believe. And Walter, please correct me. And then we have Marvin Polis. So Walter is one of the counselors with Barhead County, and he's also been a delegate from Barhead County to the RETA board, and has been the driving force behind us kind of moving in the direction of tourism with the Growth RETA and with Wild Alberta. And Marvin is our contracted marketing guru that we have contracted through Wild to help us to rebuild the website and to put some great things together. So what I'll do, gentlemen, is I'll turn it over to you, and then certainly any of the questions that the committee has about the RETA or Wild, we can answer right at the end. So sit back and enjoy.
Okay, yeah, can you hear me, Bert? Or?
You bet, Walter.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and it's Marvin here, and sorry to jump in. I'm sharing my screen now. Are you able to see it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
Okay, so Bert, I just wanted to say that as long as you don't mispronounce my first name, I'm fine with it.
Thank you, Walter.
I could say that.
This discussion here is all about tourism in the region, and Wild Alberta being part of growth, and I assume that this committee knows what growth is all about, and that Wild is a section of growth, and we're working on rejuvenating the Wild after the COVID and various things that's kind of become more subdued, and we really want to rejuvenate the Wild. And so we have a committee that was formed, which has 8 people on it, including Bert and myself and a number of operators in the region. So we tried to get a committee that comes from different areas, some from Lac St. Anne, from Westlock and Barhead and Woodlands, as well as Swan Hills. So and Indigenous. We have Marcel from Alexander Reserve as being a key part of the committee as well. So between that and the strategic plan that was completed about 4 years ago, and some focus groups we've had with operators in the region since, we're working on 4 kind of principles. And that is, the principle one is that we feel that tourism in this area really has to be promoted on a regional basis. And the second point is that operators have to be very engaged in this organization. The third point is that it'll be a place for collaboration between operators and stakeholders, and help to facilitate training in tourism, and also developing new products, finding out where there are gaps and developing new products. And the fourth point is to do with marketing of its products, of all the products in the region. And Marvin has a lot of expertise in that area, and he'll be presenting some details about it. So we feel the tourism industry, or this is a very good time to be really working hard on tourism in this area. The tourism industry contributes about $8 billion, according to the provincial government, to the Alberta economy. And the goal of the government is to expand that to about $20 billion by the year 2030, so that's only 8 years from now. And the emphasis is not going to be so much on the Jasper Banffs of this world, but more on the fringe markets, fringe areas. So we really believe that this region is ideally located. We're within a half hour to an hour and a half, depending exactly where in the region. But we're very close to the 1.4 million people that live in the greater Edmonton area. And yet we can offer remote types of wilderness experiences, indigenous experiences, historic, agriculture, all sorts of stuff, golfing, cultural events. So we feel it's a really good time to start to really work on this and get operators involved. So I'm going to turn it over to Marvin now, and he can explain some of the details.
All right. Thanks, Walter. Just want to confirm that you can all hear me. Can you hear me?
You bet, Marvin, loud and clear. And Walter, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So I've just forwarded onto our next slide here, and Walter has already touched on this, that Wild Alberta is actually an initiative and brand that was created by Growth Alberta. And I think, as many, if not all of you know, Growth has been around for a long time, since the early 2000s. So we're planning on relaunching the Wild Alberta brand in a new way and in a big way. As Walter said, coming out of COVID, a lot of things have fallen by the wayside, and it's now time to get things going again. I mean, people are, they've had cabin fever, they want to get out and about, and they want to do things, and they don't necessarily want to get on an airplane. So it's a really good time for us to be promoting regional tourism where they can be day trips or weekend trips. So I'm not going to go through this slide in any significant detail because you have this in your package and you can probably go through this yourself, but there has been a lot of input and into what we're talking about doing here. Most of it's, I guess the springboard was a strategic tourism study that was undertaken by Growth and Wild a number of years ago, and Walter talked about some of the other input that we've had from tourism operators and such. So part of our long-term vision is to reorganize Wild Alberta as a destination marketing organization. This won't happen today. It's likely a couple of years out. And what that does is it provides a special designation in the tourism world when it comes to applying for provincial grants and that sort of thing. But really the important thing here, regardless of what you call it, is that the organization has intention of being razor focused on tourism. So it's not really the broader economic development aspects of the region with respect to Wild. It's tourism all day, all night, 24/7. It's getting visitors to visit the area northwest of Edmonton. So previously, Wild Alberta only involved municipalities by virtue of being a brand of growth. But going forward, we see this as being a collaboration of municipalities, First Nations, and tourism. And as Walter already noted, that collaboration has already started.
So Marvin, I just wanted to tell you quickly, so your slides aren't advancing on our screen. If you could maybe just move things forward for us. I know you want to do just kind of an overview of the presentation, but if you can go down to the proposed footprint for promotion slides.
Okay, it is what I have on my screen right now.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah, and I've been advancing.
Well, that's interesting.
Odd.
I don't see it at all.
Are you
Yes,
sharing your screen, Marvin?
Thought it was.
There
What
it is.
are you seeing
There
now?
we go. Thank you.
The rodeo.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's odd. It's not playing. Okay, but when I do this, I'm going to pop this up to full screen. I'm going to flip a page. What do you see now?
It didn't pop.
Still the rodeo.
It hasn't moved to full screen yet, so we might be on a bit of a
Okay,
delay.
we're going to do this. Okay.
No, it just hasn't.
All right, so
Oh,
you're
okay.
seeing the rodeo at this point?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to look at it this way, and I'll let you know when I flip the page.
Can you also zoom
and
in
then
on
you
the
can
slides
confirm.
a little bit?
And Marvin, apparently we can't go to full page, but if you do a zoom in, if you stay on your,
okay.
your regular and do a zoom in, that'll make it a little bit bigger for us and for our viewers watching.
Is that better?
Perfect. That's perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay, well, thank you for that advice.
Hey,
All right.
it's always fun to work through the technical challenges, but it's pretty amazing tech when we get it working to our advantage. So thank you.
That's right. Okay, good. So Walter already mentioned the Edmonton region, and that's huge. Metro Edmonton is about 1.3 to 1.4 million people. We also have the in-market area, which is about 50,000 people. And yes, absolutely, we want people to travel within the region. And then, broader Alberta as well. There are a lot of things that can be done in the Northwest, which of course will be our focus, that you can't do in Southern Alberta. Anything involving trees, for instance, would be a good example, with the exception of maybe Waterton, to be fair, and the Crow's Nest Pass area. But, I'm digressing. But certainly the northwest area of the province has some special attributes that we see ourselves promoting. Some of the things short term, we do intend to rebuild the website. It's actually being taken offline right now because of COVID. It just got too out of date and such. So rebuilding that. But in addition to the website, embedding promotional videos and audio clips as well. I've given you a couple of links here in your copy of the presentation. You can actually click into them if you want. And I have a sample of the website that I'll show you in a minute if we can get that one to cooperate. But what we intend to do here is really focus this on activities that people are passionate about, not focusing it around a municipality. And and I like to pick on Walter because he's a really good-humored guy. I'd like to say that people in Edmonton don't wake up on a Saturday morning thinking, I've got the day off, I wonder what I could do in Barrhead County, right? They just don't think that way. They're thinking is, I've got the day off, I wonder where I can take my kayak, or I wonder where I can go cross-country skiing, or I wonder where I can go snowmobiling. That's the way they're thinking. So we're talking about structuring what we do around what people are passionate about, and then use that as a trigger to draw them into the region. So again, I'll show you more about that with the website. And then the podcast, what we're suggesting we're going to do is to produce a weekly podcast that's called the Wild Weekend Podcast, and each episode will focus on some attribute of the region, and it could be snowmobiling, cross-country skiing, it could be the local rodeo at Mayerthorpe, it could be, there are just so many things. And some of these episodes will be focused on private businesses as well. So there's a link that you can click through, and again, I'm going to show you how it's going to be structured within the website in a moment, but within the version of the document that you have, you can actually click through to a sample version. And it all being experiential as well. So that episode of the podcast that you'll be able to listen to, just for expediency, needed to be done as a phone interview, but it's really intended to be done out there in the field. So I hosted that episode, but it was a phone call. But really, on a weekly basis, it's really the host of the podcast is out there, and he's in the Golden Triangle, and he's with the folks out on their machines, and they're out on the trails, and that's where the interview would actually be happening. So longer term, we're also talking about getting involved in some product development. In some cases, these things already exist, like open farm days, and helping to fine tune them. And in some cases, it's helping to create some actual experiences. For instance, like working with Alexander First Nations to create some Indigenous tourism experiences that will draw people to Alexander First Nation. I'm going to give it a shot right now, see if I can get the website mock-up on the screen. Did you see the page change?
Not yet.
Are you seeing the website mock-up now?
No.
Nope. Oh, okay, hold on.
Motorbike.
If you're using more than one monitor, if you slide your new web page onto the monitor where you're sharing the screen, that should work for you.
I think I actually have to tell Teams to share a different page. So
That
let's
should
try
work too.
this.
There we go.
Okay, good. So it's a little bit awkward, but we'll get through it. All right, so here's the landing page to the website prototype. And, as we click in, so this is what I mentioned. It's about structuring the website around what people like to do. Realistically, this list is going to be a lot longer than this, but here's something for starters. And I'm wondering if I can... See, I can't share this full screen. Okay, so can you see this next page?
Yeah, Motorsports is up for the time.
Yeah, so let's say I'm interested in motorsports. I wake up Saturday morning and thinking, where can I take my dirt bike? I live in the city of Edmonton, or one of the suburbs. I can't just drive it down the street. So I want to find a new place to ride my new dirt bike. So there are motorsports parks in the region. Barrie's Ultra Motorsports Park in Barrhead County is one example of that. There's certainly others, so this list would be much more full than this. And so it's an opportunity for me to learn very briefly what's available at Barrie's, but we're not suggesting that we'd reinvent the wheel. So here you can see where we would click people off to Barrie's actual website, and we won't reinvent that wheel. But then another aspect of this is that maybe I want to ride a dirt bike or a quad, but my wife isn't interested, and I want her to come along, and she says, well, I'm willing to drop you off, but what else can I do in the county of Barrhead? So again, click people off into the county of Barrhead, and she can find out where she can go shopping for antiques, or maybe find a farm-to-table farm organization where she can buy some local baked goods or that sort of thing, or some fresh vegetables or berries or even meat if she wants to. So again, not reinventing what the county of Barrhead is already doing, but using this as an overview, an umbrella to click people into the county of Barrhead. And something that's not indicated here on the website, but what we would be including as well, is maps, because maybe I am interested in taking my bike to Barrie's, but I also need to know how to get there. So having this integrated with Google Maps as well. I'm going to see if I can play this video from this page. No. Okay. You're just going to need to click on it from the presentation that you have, and just imagine that it's popping up on the screen. And then also you can see here we've done the same thing with snowmobiling in the Golden Triangle, and you can see that there's a link here to the podcast episode, and you have a link to that podcast episode. in your document. Let's see if this will play. Oh, I think it will. Okay. So here's what it would look like when we click on that link. Can you hear this, by the way, or just see it?
No, I think you have to share the sound separately, but we do have the video playing.
Okay. So what we're planning on doing is producing a 1-minute video, give or take, for each of the attractions that are featured on the website. And then I'm not going to bother with the podcast because you're not going to hear it anyway, but this would be the page that would be representative of that.
The one thing I can say, Marvin, I know you're, it's actually kind of interesting that we're only hearing your voice and not seeing you at this point, because Marvin has a fantastic announcer voice, and the podcast is really incredible. So I do recommend everybody kind of giving it a bit of a listen.
I may have done some radio back in the day. Thanks. Thanks for that, Bert. All right. Let me see if I can get this flipped back to the main presentation. Okay. Can you see the main presentation again, proposed initiatives?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. So that experience of sharing wasn't as good as I had hoped it would be over Teams, so I apologize for that.
It worked perfectly as a teaser. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, again, I do encourage you to use your PDF version of the presentation. Unfortunately, the prototype of the website is not there because it's not big enough, or sorry, that's too big to email, but there are actually links to the video and the podcast, so you can get an idea of that. So let's talk about how we're planning on bringing this together for funding. Right now, we're in the process of applying for a tourism recovery grant from the federal government, which is a sizable grant. But basically, one category is grants from the provincial government and federal government, and then memberships from the actual for-profit tourism operators, and per capita contributions from municipalities and First Nations. And again, you have a copy of this page, so I'm not going to go into it in any detail. I've already acknowledged the per capita contribution, and then looking at the tourism operator involvement, we're looking at offering 2 levels of involvement from them. Walter, is there anything you wanted to say about the TRF application at this point?
Well, like the funding, like Marvin says, is we're trying to get the various councils to support it financially, and also the operators significantly as well. But there are Travel Alberta has grants available for specific projects, and now the federal government, the Tourist Recovery Fund, has a grant available that we're just in the process of putting the application together for that, and that would be kind of to help us with all the startup costs and the getting all the documentation together, the assets together, the different operators, so that we have a clear idea of where all the operators are and who they are, and then mapping that out and making the videos and the podcasts and the websites, all that stuff. So we're hoping, we're going to be applying for about $250,000 grant, which we may or may not get, but there's a good chance we'll get a good chunk of that. So I don't think, well, I know that this is not dependent on that grant, but the grant would give us a big boost and would be able to speed up the process, I think. So that's what I have to say about that. we've made, I think, 8 or 9 presentations now, Marvin, if I'm right, and the reception has been really good. So I really anticipate that most of the councils will support this initiative, and we're going to start going to the operators and stakeholders shortly, and it'll be, I think, very helpful if your council and your economic development board could help us locate some of those people so that we can make some Zoom presentations to groups on this same issue.
Yeah, so a little bit more on that, if I can interject, Walter, is that, specifically what we'd like to do, because we want to go beyond the municipal presentations, is we want to invite the private tourism operators to join in as well. And probably the best way to do that is to set up, maybe 2 or 3 sessions where people from anywhere in the region can be invited to join us, and we'll explain what we're up to and how we would invite them to get involved. In order to do that, we do need the assistance of the municipalities and the economic development committees to help us, reach out and invite the operators to those sessions, because we know who some of them are, but we don't know who all of them are, and we want to cast this net as far and wide as we possibly can in the Northwest. And sorry, I interrupted, Walter. Did you have something to?
Yeah, and I think we do have a slide on the communities that we're sort of focusing on. So it's basically the growth, the old growth region. So the county of Westlock, county of Barrhead, county of Woodlands, and county of Lac Saint, and then all the towns and villages within those 4 counties, and as well as the First Nations communities that are there. So Alexander First Nations has already said they really want to be in this on the ground floor, and they really see the potential for development of experiences for people coming out from the city on the Indigenous level. So that's really good. But yeah, and then we see the outlying communities as potentials to join this tourist association as well. But we want to focus on the core area first and make sure it works properly, and then we'll invite others to come into it as well, like the Big Lakes County and I forgot, Swan Hills is not part of the counties, but they are part of this initiative too. Yeah, and then there's some First Nations up there, Drift Pile and Sucker Creek and MD of Opportunity, Sawridge. There are lots of different First Nations, and the counties kind of to the north and west of us, and even perhaps Sturgeon County and Parkland we could consider. But anyway, and Whitecourt. So those are, it could be a huge area, but I think to begin with, we want to focus on a smaller region. So go ahead, Marvin.
Okay, I've flipped it over to the next slide, and I think we've really talked about this, so
yeah,
I don't think we need to go through it anymore. And yeah, I guess we can open it up to questions at this point.
Very well. And just the first thing that I wanted to add is the intent with the organization as well is to just kind of be a broader blanket. In no way do we want Wild to replace any of the existing marketing efforts that other communities or other groups might be doing. It's just simply we're hoping to kind of have a bigger, broader entity out there that other groups, and especially that existing groups, could join and be part of, and kind of try to do it that way. I mean, the intent's never been to, try and stave anything else off or all of that. It's to be basically have it be as big and as inclusive as we possibly can. And now on the funding model, the one part that I want to add here, so we do have a number of municipalities that are still in the growth RETA based on the $1.60 per person. So I think we've got 4 municipalities confirmed right now at that core rate as part of the growth RETA. The ask for Wild Alberta, as everybody can see in the presentation, is at $1 per person. So the idea that we had come up with, the Wild had put forward and that the RETA board adopted, was that the municipal funding would be lower if you wanted to be part only of the tourism entity. And so it looks like we have a few of the municipalities that had said no to the RETA that are actually considering yes to Wild. So that's been probably one of the other really significant things.
So let me jump in there as well, Bert, and say that just to make it absolutely clear, for those municipalities who are part of growth and have contributed the $1.60 per capita, the dollar for Wild is not on top of that. But what we're saying is that $1 of the 160 will go specifically to tourism.
I'm just going to say, as per our ACDev budget and as per the invoice received, our Wild membership is paid for Woodlands County for this year. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Thanks.
I just wanted to say one other thing is that the concept of having a tourist association, a regional tourist association, is not a new concept. There are several of them in Alberta that have been successfully operating over the years. And we've consulted with some, and in particular with the Mackenzie Frontier Tourist Association up at high level, and they have a number of municipalities that are contributing to it, and a lot of tourist operators. So it is a proven concept. That's just what I wanted to add, Bert.
Thank you, Walter.
I'm just wondering if you guys are planning on taking advantage of some of the regional trade shows to both get your message out and maybe even attract more partners to the initiative.
Oh, that's a good idea. The trade shows.
I think the one in Lakecourt's coming up in
May
May.
26th, 27th, I think.
So that actually goes to another agenda item that we have, which was what kind of a presence would we like the county to have at the trade show this year? And so promoting Wild and the growth RETA is something we've done in the past. It's something that we can probably work with our Wild group to make sure that we're kind of leveraging and doing some things, but we can have that discussion a little bit later on. I think that in regards to the marketing efforts right now, the presentations that Walter and Marvin are doing to the municipalities and to some of the operators, that's sort of the key way for getting the word out initially. We're working on a limited amount of resources right at the moment, but I think anything we can do to leverage, if there's other communities that have other trade shows or other venues, those are all great points for discussion for us.
Yeah, I was just looking at the bullet in the second quarter as per his outline here. Work with partners to identify assets, operations, local locations to promote, and that might fit in that second quarter with the trade fair as well.
Yeah.
Tricia?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good concept, and if we can do that kind of together with Woodlands County, that would be even better.
Hey, Patricia?
Hi guys, Patricia here. Thank you for your presentation. I think that the Joint Tourism Committee is a great idea. I do have, in listening to your presentation, one of the things that I know I've been seeing in tourism and for recreation is a lot more people paddling in the summer. So seems, and when you had mentioned kayaking, one of the things I've never seen before, and we kind of got it handled locally, it seems, with snowmobiling poker rallies, but it'd be nice to have a paddle poker series and something where that would bring people in from Edmonton, you know, looking at day events or even weekend events in each community throughout the summer. So where maybe there's 4 of these paddle series in the growth region, and it could be, for example, maybe part of it is you are going down the McLeod or, you know, out at Carson or, you know, just different areas in each community, whether that's Paddle River Dam. And I think it would be a great way to do something different that no one else is doing, that wouldn't have a high overhead.
Hey, Patricia, Marvin here. I think that's a great idea. You know, we've talked about creating new products and new events that haven't existed before. And I think that one's bang on, because I've been wanting to get a kayak for years, and I'm, it's like I'm going to get that kayak. I'm going to put a roof on my car, but I don't have the local knowledge. I spent much of my childhood and youth in the region because my family's from the region, but still there are big gaps in my local knowledge. Like, I good idea of where to go fishing, but I don't know where to go kayaking. And to have these events where I can pick up some of that local knowledge and actually meet people, coming out of the cabin fever of COVID, that's just awesome. So thank you for that. That's great.
Hey, Crystal?
Yeah, I really like that idea too. It's a little bit along the lines of what at Grand Cache they have, I think 7 or 10 mountains that they use in that kind of a way too. That you sign in and you hike up the one mountain and you register that, and then you hike up another one another time and that sort of thing. It's kind of the similar concept at least.
Crystal?
Hi guys, thanks for the presentation. I guess my question is, the Wild Alberta, are they looking at promotion or creation of industry? And how are they going to promote and create business without competing with the local operators?
Well, basically, it would be the local operators. It would be the collaborating between local operators that would figure out what needs to be created, and it would be local operators that would have to do the creating. I don't think Wild would be in a position to actually do the it wouldn't be doing the operating.
Okay, so it would be more just sharing information.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Art?
You want to add something, Marvin? Or?
Well, I was just going to say, so the analogy that we've often used is imagine Wild as kind of a chamber of commerce for business. So it's a way where all of the operators can kind of come together. They have a chance to kind of build their own synergies, hopefully build and work and do their own things. We might be able to work together, as we've mentioned, with some of those identified individual sectors. And the idea is to be able to kind of do that collective marketing and try to have it within one platform. But it very much is an operator-driven kind of thing. And Walter, I can maybe have you speak to this a bit, but that's been one of the things that's been interesting over the course of the last year and a half or so, as we've been trying to reach out and do focus groups with operators. That's really where this Wild Alberta Destination Marketing Group sort of came from. It's been operator-driven, and we've had operators involved kind of with the concept and with the development of all of it so far.
Any more questions?
Yeah. I think that's a good analogy with the Chamber of Commerce. It's kind of a go-to place, and then the website and other media would direct people to the operators that exist in whatever field that they're interested in. So if they are interested in boating or canoeing, then they can have a listing of all the canoeing places that they can go to, or whatever, the motorbike, whatever it is. It's sort of an umbrella organization that would help promote all operators in the region.
Yeah, another example might be, let's say, fishing derbies. So, the owners of various tackle shops and boating retailers might want some help in creating a fishing derby and promoting the fishing derby. So the distinction would be is that, yes, we could likely help them create and promote the fishing derby, but Wild Alberta wouldn't be in the business of creating a tackle shop, right? We want to drive traffic to that tackle shop or that boat repair shop or that sort of undertaking. So hopefully that helps with the distinction.
Okay, Art?
I'm just wondering how many basic memberships you have to date and what your target is for what you would call a successful first year.
So there's two sides to that. One is the municipalities and First Nations, and the other is the actual tourism operators. So we have not started reaching out to the tourism operators yet, but that's going to be coming first. We want to start with the municipalities because, frankly, like, we need their help, and we need the help of the economic development committees to reach out to the tourism operators. So, as Walter mentioned, we've reached out to 8 or 9 municipalities and First Nations at this point, and we have, I believe the number is 5, Walter, who are
Yeah,
on
5.
board, and the others are pending.
Yeah, yeah, and they've all shown interest. I think they just have to take it and discuss it with their budgets and stuff. But but yeah, I think our goal for the first 12 months is to get 12 councils committed to it, and to get 40 or 50 operators also to get committed to it. So that would be the first 12 months, but we would hope that could expand to more.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any more questions? Okay, thank you guys for joining our meeting. A lot of good information. And with that, I have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the presentation as information.
She makes the motion. Any questions? All in favor? So passed.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you very much. You can sign off now, but we really appreciate it. It looks like maybe they already have. No? Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity, everybody,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and have a good rest of the meeting. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, guys.
And next is strategic thinking. Off you work.
Okay, thank you very much. So I do apologize. It has been an incredibly busy month, and I haven't had a chance to get updates completed on the strategic part of things. So the sheet is there. I'm certainly willing to give any verbal updates if there's any that are needed at this point. But really, for me, the most important question was, we do have the council strategic planning session coming up in a couple of weeks, and actually coming up next week, I guess. And I want to ask the committee, of the items that are there, are there any items that are on our list that we need to have in front of council? I mean, I think in the past, broadband has probably been one of those biggest things, and we have that provincial broadband strategy a little bit later in the meeting package as well. But broadband and Aboriginal engagement, and I think just strategic economic development in general, are all going to be items that we see that are going to be on that strategic planning meeting for council. So it really was just kind of any update, any comments, any questions from the committee on that?
I have a few questions, so and now when you asked that question, I just kind of wanted to quickly take a peek, because there's a few, for example, like one, the Wild Band Sports Run. I was just wondering, when was that event proposed for?
So it's a private event that's, he's got it proposed for June.
Okay.
We still haven't seen a development permit
Okay.
come from him for the event for this year, but we know that he very much wants to do it. We know that his website is up and running. Unfortunately, he did have to cancel the event as he had envisioned it last year due to COVID. So he did what he called the COVID Klondike instead of doing the Klondike Run. And so the restrictions last year, and I mean, there was a lot of folks that we had negative effects due to COVID restrictions and all of that. But he really got caught right in the middle of the pinchers, boy, because it was just before, basically he couldn't do the run as a run with everybody there together all at the same time because of the COVID restrictions. And then just after his event was when we had that first lifting of all of the restrictions. We went to the wide open summer kind of thing that we had through July of last year. So he really kind of got pinched. So the last conversation that I had with Monty was probably about mid to late December. And the intent is that he could see as many as 300 to 500 people on the ground for that event. The Wildlands Board's website is up and running. He's got his Instagram page up and running. He's doing his marketing. So the biggest thing that we have left with him is he just has to basically get his development permit filed for this year, and then everything is all good as far as we're concerned. But it is a private nonprofit event, so it's a private organizer that we're just basically trying to work with. But it's one of those significant new events, and so as we go back to that wild conversation, maybe the extreme running events and extreme marathoning and all.
I guess for the notes I had, the two main things about the strategic planning session. One was for the International Economic Development Week, which is May 9th to 13th.
Yes.
I have not seen anything that was planned or slotted.
Because we haven't planned or done anything yet. There has been a request from Economic Developers of Alberta that we would be able to ask our council to recognize International ECDEV Week, and I was actually going to bring that forward for next month's meeting. That's something that we encourage council to look at. We do have $1,000 in our budget slated towards International ECDEV Week, but that's going to be moved over to fund part of the cycling conference. So there really isn't much for activities we can do, but we could certainly do the local declaration. And we're just starting to see the information come out from IEDC and from EDA just over the course of the last couple of weeks as to what some of the options and some of the other things are for what other municipalities are doing for recognizing International ECDEV Week. I know we have had an initial email from Community Futures as well to say maybe there's something that we can do regionally. So I'm open to ideas. It's just we've got a limited budget, but I would love to do something to be able to recognize that and to put that forward. And that's something that we can bring forward to council too.
Okay, and then it was just the last one I had there was, sorry, about promoting the positive relationships with First Nations for the council specifically to do with the strategic development. Then that's something I just am wondering what specifically they're going to do there, and just want to make sure that that's something that is on the agenda.
I believe that it is, yes. There's a whole kind of public engagement and Aboriginal engagement strategy. I believe that they're going to end up kind of discussing and coming out with a bit more policy and direction on, I think.
Okay, Art,
So-
Crystal.
Just a couple items there, Bert, for clarification. On page 47 of 80 there you have Investigate Fire Emergency Service Training Center. And I think that was one of our earlier initiatives that got sidetracked when the funding for post-secondary institutions got cut. And since then, Norquest College is no longer the Campus Alberta provider for this area, and Northern Lakes College is the new provider. So I'd like to almost pull that one right off the list, so council doesn't need to be focusing on that. But the one to replace it would be to establish a new relationship with Northern Lakes College about post-secondary opportunities in the region. And that aligns very nicely with some of our work on energy and Northern Lakes' presence in Fox Creek. So there might be some synergy there that can overlap. So that was one of the items that I had on there. Another one that I had is top of page 44 of 80, which is attend the Global Energy Show. We know that we have that on the books, but it would be nice to also add there the hydrogen conference, the upcoming hydrogen conference, because I think the two go hand in hand. And with the opportunity of the site conference the site selection conference that we've got, that's not on here, maybe we put that together as a three group, because it has been a major focus for us at this level, and I know it does have some great opportunities for council as well.
Can do, thank you.
Okay, Crystal?
I would say that the big one for me that, and I don't know if it falls under this. What was it? I just saw it here. Page 47, the follow-up on the Blue Ridge and Fort Assiniboine tangible business strategies. But I know it's something that's come up a few times in conversations with residents, is an area structure plan for Fort Assiniboine. And if that's something that we could propose to council.
I'm busily writing my notes, yes. Thank you.
That's it.
Well, all the topics are everything we've talked about really this fall, between the strategic plan and the site selection and everything. So a lot of this will be covered, but you said broadband, Indigenous relationships, and you're looking for other ideas. I think the growth Rita has to, because it takes in about three, I'm sure you're going to, three of the strategies, because it's going to take in the marketing and what else did I have in here? There's about 2 or 3 strategies I saw in here that I thought that would fall under that.
Well, and,
that's
this
money.
has been I have to admit, we're down to a very stalwart and noble crew, of which Walter is the champion, coming from Barrhead County, Mayor Jabush, who is our acting chair, and who's also kind of leading Mayor Thorpe in, and then Terry from Swan Hills. And then, of course, Peter is a designated rep from our council for the Rita. We're really the 4 core municipalities right now. We're the 4 that have committed to kind of paying that $1.6 dollars per head. So, yeah, I mean, the importance of the Rita, I think it's more important now more than ever for us to be able to say, we know we need to be working regionally, and you're dealing with those 4 champions around the table. We've got a really strong core group, and that was where it's been incredibly interesting to kind of get some of the feedback and hear from some of the other municipalities about why they no longer want to be part of things. And well, they don't want to spend 1.6 per head for a regional act dev, but they can buy into regional tourism at $1. So
Yeah.
the key thing is how do we keep people working regionally? And so I think that I'm sure it's something that probably may end up coming up at the strategic planning session, but I mean, I think we're in growth until the end. from all of the indications we've seen from council and from our committee so far, I mean, yeah, we're almost down to being one of the last ones standing anyways, but we're gonna grow back from here. It's a phoenix, I know it is.
Can I ask a kind of a segue question here? During the presentation, we've heard about wild and everything, and being that you go to the meetings, do people know what wild means?
So this is the biggest frustration that came out of last year is Wild had an awesome presence and a fantastic website. And we were gathering social media photos, and Wild had it had a good presence. It was a known entity. And last year, because of administration issues and things that we had internally, we missed some bill payments. The website basically fell into a state of disrepair that once bringing Marvin on board, it was, look, I can't rebuild this thing, guys. We're better off just to start anew. And so that's where both the Wild and the Growth Rita websites are down at the moment, but they'll both be back by this fall.
I should have phrased that differently. Let's say, if they're trying to promote eventually, outside of the core, people from Edmonton or Spruce Grove to Stoney say, oh, okay, we want to go. If I was to type in where to kayak, and Wild came up, that's my question later. I didn't think it was right for the presentation, but something to contemplate. You don't have to address it now because I know we're in a time frame, but
So.
If I saw wild, what does it mean?
There's a parallel to that, and that is conversation that I had yesterday with Cindy from Golden Triangle as well. Even for snowmobiling, right? People that are active snowmobilers now, they know the Golden Triangle and they know our area reasonably well, right? The folks that already come here know us. The question is how do you do market penetration to people that are new, right? And that's where it takes big dollars, right? I mean, if you're gonna market into Edmonton, like one of the key marketing resources for summer activities from Edmonton is it's actually published by a publisher out of St. Albert, but they have the Edmonton Hot Summer Guide, right? But I mean, at a minimum, it's a $5,000 ad, right? I mean, that's just the cost. So, I mean, you know, when you consider that total for the year for advertising, we've got a $2,500 ad budget for us for economic development. You know, we can't even begin to consider how to do some of this bigger stuff. So that's where the hope is through the application, through the Tourism Relief Fund, we end up with some federal money coming in that we can use to develop some of our own tools that Wild can then easily promote out through social media and all of that. But how do you penetrate into bigger markets? We need cash to do it, and right now we just don't have it, whether it's for Wild or for the snowmobiling club or what have you.
Okay, no, thank you.
Just as you guys were talking though, one thing that kind of popped into my head there, with money and with Edmonton and Calgary, if those are the markets you're kind of looking to attract for up here, there could be something with private business that we do as a barter. So for example, if they're, you know, boat sellers or Mountain Equipment Co-op, whatever, any of these outfitters that are selling any of this equipment, including locals, then we put them on our website. They, you know, put a link to Wild or whatever it is on theirs.
Well, and you're 100% exactly right. And that's where, once we get the Wild website reestablished, I think there are some contra and some in-kind opportunities like that. And though, I mean, we're trying to set it up that we don't take anything off the table. We want to be as open-minded as we can, but those are absolutely wonderful ideas. And I think it's something that we might see it kind of implemented with Wild as it moves forward.
But I just want to, through the chair, to acknowledge just how difficult this has been in light of how the municipal budgets have been cut back and the difficulty that we have in collecting taxes from oil and gas companies. This is a real impact. And as an economic development committee, it's hard to be developing when we've faced so many millions of dollars cut from our municipal budget. And we're operating on a shoestring that I think we're all acknowledging could do so much more with even the reconciling of some of that into our municipal budget. So I'm hearing your pain on that, Bert, but I also want to acknowledge that this committee feels it could do more if it had some of those additional resources, and not a large amount, but we're down to, you know, $1,000 here, $1,000 there, when really, you know, if those municipal taxes were paid, we'd be talking hundreds of thousands and developing strategies for our residents and the region beyond.
Well, and this is where I want to give a bit of an apology to the committee as well. I really had hoped that, and I was very optimistic, that it would be pretty easy to find the comparative numbers that you had asked for. Holy smokes, no, I haven't been able to find them as easily as what I thought I could. So I do have the surrounding population numbers. We've got all of that out of the 2021 census, and that's no problem. I do have a direct contact with the it's basically with finance to try and get those other related ECDEV spending numbers of our related municipalities. So as soon as I have that, I will get that sent out to the committee. It's on my to-do list. And I think that is going to be a nice little benchmark for us for a comparative. Yeah, because I mean, let's face it, different municipalities approach economic development in different ways, and some spend more and some spend less. And so I'll do my best to get that tool to the committee as quickly as I can.
Just before you, I'd like to make a comment on what Bert's saying there. It's just not our municipality that is having a hardship.
Yeah.
It's province-wide. everybody's been affected by this, and, the province is starting to get some more money, and hopefully they'll share some more as they get a little more prosperous, but it's province-wide. Okay, Patricia.
That actually is kind of a great segue to the comment that I wanted to make as well, because what I was wondering is, and I don't know what the mechanism of communication would be for this, but realistically, we see that the provincial government is stepping up and they're reinserting and allocating funds into areas that they haven't had for a number of years. With that being said, is there pressure that we can put on the province to say, hey, obviously they know that municipalities have been hurt by this, and economic development is one of the things that they seem really focused on right now. So if that's the case, then let's literally issue a letter to the province asking for them to develop a grant program for municipalities that were hit the hardest
So.
for economic development purposes.
I think that's something, I think for, maybe council to kind of consider. I know you guys were just recently at RMA, and there was a fair bit of face-to-face lobbying and that kind of thing that our council's done, and maybe, councilor, you've got more on that a little bit later on.
It was a discussion, but the easiest way to do it is lobby RMA, and to do that, you have to do a presentation.
They can't say no if we don't ask, though.
Well, and one of the things, like going back to when we did have the opportunity to submit some input last fall, when there were, we had that meeting where it was basically economic development officers to the ministers and the MLAs, and they were taking the input in for developing the new rural development strategy. Fully funding the REDAs and being able to fully fund economic development and laying out provincial grids for hydrogen and carbon capture and all of that. So that was all part and parcel of our submission and of the information that we put in then. And I know Reeve Burrows has brought that forward at a couple of other occasions, kind of hitting on those main points. More money for roads and bridges is certainly, I think, probably the biggest thing, right?
But again, I don't think this is more money. This is money that should have been in place and used by municipalities already.
Yeah.
And I know on our last part, getting back to your question about the strategic plan, which is developing a comprehensive broadband strategy, we'd already have that. We already did that strategy. We spent a lot of money on it. I know it needs to be updated, but it's, that's all it is a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't realize any of the benefits of this when your municipality is cash strapped in the way that this has occurred in our region. And I know it's $253 million across municipalities, or maybe, I don't know, those numbers are changing. But the rate down on this is devastating to rural Alberta. And, being a member at large, I talk with the community and the ratepayers of the county, and this is something that has not gone unnoticed, that we count on our county to do the best that it possibly can, and we believe that it's functioning in that way, but to realize the financial grip that was put on this county in the last number of years because of this issue, and to not have the municipal government able to respond to the provincial government in a way that sees some kind of restitution. Really, it makes it difficult for the average ratepayer in the county to take a tax increase when they know that most of this could have been resources to the county if the provincial government had handled it properly under the Municipal Government Act and created an opportunity for municipalities to collect these resources. So it's hard to ask more from the ratepayers when this is the backdrop. And I'm not going to lay this at the foot of any particular government. It is good government when the provincial government and municipal governments work together to resolve this issue. And I'm hoping that that will be some part of a broader discussion to reconcile this so that economic development committees and councils can start to address what's been a 5-6 year lag in infrastructure and community growth projects, and the kinds of funds that would enable us to help our communities better.
Tricia?
I agree. No, I definitely agree with what you say there, and that's a strategic issue and a systemic issue with all levels of government that we're unfortunately not gonna see fixed real quickly, and one of the things that I guess right now with that and with looking for an influx of cash into economic development committees across the province, or especially, like I said, in the hardest hit, is what would it take for us? Is it something, can we create an ask here for council to take it, maybe write a letter to Rita or whatever, wherever that's been? How do we get a letter to the provincial government, preferably before the leadership vote that's coming up here? I think that I don't have the date on that on the top
3
of my head.
weeks.
Is it
April
May?
9th.
April
Oh,
9th.
my apologies. I thought it was May, so I thought we had more time. That being said, then I guess 3 weeks is not a realistic amount of time to get a letter through the system that quickly. But it just looks like that would be an opportunity right now because the government's handing out money hand over fist
No, they're not.
for certain projects. Certain projects.
And for me, this is the elephant in the room. This is the thing that's not on our strategic plan. And it should be at the top of the list. Because so much of what's on the remaining part of this list could be accomplished in ways that would help rural Alberta and the ratepayers of the county if that issue was resolved. And to not have it on this list, I think means that we need to have this discussion at this level, knowing that our councillors, this is full and present in their minds as well. But to me, that's the top thing on the strategic planning list, because as new projects come on, in hydrogen, in natural gas, in pipelines, if there isn't some kind of resolution to this tax structure, I don't think we're representing our rural Alberta and our ratepayers without some kind of resolution to this process, even if it's just moving forward.
Well said.
Undoubtedly, what everyone is saying, I know, rests very heavily on council's head and shoulders on kind of a daily basis. And I know that there's been a lot of lobbying and a lot of that kind of thing done by our REIV and by our councillors. We did have our council pass the motion through RMA last year, which AER then did recognize. We've kind of covered that through. So I think Woodlands, our council has done a really good job in raising the priority of some of these things. It is unfortunately with the MGA changes that were made, there's a bunch of things left to be decided yet, and some of them have to do with the tax collection part. Some of them have to do with the ICFs and the arbitration agreements and how some of that funding has to work out. Fundamentally, though, one of the things that we could add, and it really isn't, when I think about what's in our existing strategic plan for the county, and when we look at what we have in here, it's kind of, I think it's an assumption, but we don't have it directly stated. What are we doing to grow the tax base? That's a very fundamental economic development role. And I don't think anywhere in our documentation do we have it laid out to say, let's have, growing the tax base. We can make that one of our number one priorities for economic development. And that really, from that stems all the rest of our activities, right? It becomes one of those other kind of fundamental pillars. And I think that we all sort of understand that, and I think we work around that, but we really don't have it directly stated. So that might be something that we could look at including.
To me, it goes right in the top on the first page, which is reparations over our existing tax base and growing our current tax base. And I think what we're doing is, as a committee, we're empowering, we're sending a message to our council that we see this as a vital economic development portion of our platform and the work that we do to support council. Now, we know that this is an issue for council, but by putting it in our strategic plan and discussing it here today, we're reinforcing the importance of that at the local base and empowering our council to say, you know, we're not the only, as councillors, we're not the only ones noticing it. Our economic development committees are seeing this as a major initiative in our 5-year plan, in our 10-year plan, in our 20-year plan. This is how far we've been set back. And to enable them to take that message in their capacities through municipalities to the provincial government, I think is a good step in terms of supporting our council.
So just kind of fleshing that thinking out a bit. So if everybody's amenable, this is certainly one of the changes, one of the items we could add in. So the goal would be to grow the tax base. The objective would be to attract investment. The plan of action can kind of be twofold, but basically what I've got is an increase in assessment, and then the method of evaluation, and I'm very specific how I write this, an increase in local tax revenue as a result, not just an increase in local tax revenue.
How,
And I agree with all of that, Bert, but you missed the first part, which is the reparations of our existing tax base. In other words, the restitution for what's occurred in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and that's something where I think, I mean, we can, I think that goes in as kind of a separate item. But in regards to the grow the tax base item, we could certainly kind of run with this. The reparations part of it, I think we add that as something that we have council take to their strategic planning session, because as I said, I know that's something that weighs heavily on their heads now, and you know,
I'm gonna follow your advice on that, sorry.
yeah.
I was, okay, with that said then, I was just thinking, how is that a goal, or is that a statement under the title? You know, this is only possible if, like the goals are only possible if, or we support in order to achieve our goals. I don't know, I'm just trying to figure this.
I just sat through 2 days of strategic planning, a course on it. And that is something we could put into our vision statement.
Mhm.
Like a vision statement doesn't have to be just one line.
No.
A vision statement can be 3-4 paragraphs.
And I think to answer your question is, we make that a part of the strategic plan.
Like a goal,
We
or
make it as a goal,
Okay.
restitution for existing unpaid taxes. I don't know how we word that, but that we are looking at the past 5 years as having a huge impact on the next 10 years. And there has to be some resolution to what we've lost in that previous process. Because a lot of it is still outstanding, right? Not all of it, we've written off some of it, but a lot of it is still outstanding and still up in the air, and there's still room for governments at multiple levels to address this problem.
So a goal would be to continue lobbying?
Either continue lobbying,
Okay.
or
Okay,
to,
I just have to
yeah,
figure
to
this out.
continue discussions about how we can recover
Or
the tax
prevent.
base that that currently is outstanding.
Or to prevent that from the future?
Well, I think we're back to both.
Oh, okay. Okay, just
the
wanted,
overlap, yeah.
thank you. I'm
Has
just
there
trying
been
to-
anything
Well, me
done
too.
going forward so that that's not happening anymore?
Yes.
So that, like going forward, that has already been addressed?
Like with quite a bit of the taxes that we've lost, the companies have gone bankrupt.
Mhm.
Like, there's nobody you're gonna get money from. The province isn't gonna give you money for taxes that you've lost. So basically suck it up and move on.
Yeah, and I realize that write-off has happened, but you can change the Municipal Tax Act so
Oh,
that
that's
this
good.
doesn't happen again, right?
Yeah.
That's there has to
That's
be,
being worked.
that money has to be put in up front for things like cleanup, for things like paying their taxes prior to the dissolving of a company, or putting the municipality in line in terms of recovering those. Because for the ratepayers, they go, if I don't pay my taxes, I get a lien on my property. And these oil and gas companies just shell these things out to the next thing, then they write it off the books as a bad asset. And to me, CRA is really good at closing loopholes, and this is a big loophole that needs to be closed for municipalities in Alberta.
Especially if
And
there's-
there are ways it can be done.
I think we're getting a little off.
Yeah, sorry.
But with the site link, let's say if something, if it's, goes as we plan, we don't know whom, they could always leave. And is there some safeguards for us, right? So good point.
See, and so again, just to sort of touch on that a bit, the part that is interesting is, I mean, if it's, whether it's a residential or non-residential development, if it's site-specific, right, there is governance around what happens, right? If somebody goes, if it's an individual property, and it's on the linear where the issue is. And that's where, through AER, what the Woodlands County had done was we'd put forward the motion at RMA, and what's been adopted now is that, things can't be sold unless there's basically kind of a financial test now, right? And so if you owe back taxes on a parcel that's transferring, those have to be paid before it can transfer, as long as the municipality sticks its nose in and says, hey, wait, we need to be paid first, right? That was the major change that Woodlands County was able to bring in.
But all we did was have RMA is gonna start lobbying the provincial government to do that. The provincial government just enacted I don't know if it's a law or whatever it is, that on linear tax, we can seize assets where we couldn't before. So that is a way that if they do go bankrupt, we're first in line.
Perfect.
Let's
That's a
start.
start.
Yeah,
So,
because
and-
what happened before was municipalities on linear were the same as any other creditor, right? So, I mean, if a company owed $100 million and they had 10 million in assets, you might get 10 cents on the dollar depending on how things liquidate, right?
Okay, any more questions?
Just had one more thing to add for the strategic planning when you, in regards to putting forward to council. And it sounds kind of selfish from this committee, but the budget, regardless of, I know you're looking for the numbers of what it is in other communities and so on, and how the ACTEV budget relates by population. But just as a reminder, I don't want to lose sight of the conversation that we had to have about dealing with parade candy or sending people to hydrogen conference. And I think that that's something that really needs to be top of mind and brought to the council, is that the ACTEV budget needs to be increased. If we're going to increase the tax base, we're coming into what seems to be, could be, a very, very good opportunity for our county in developing in these areas with the increase of, even the price in the energy sector and so on. We should be coming into more of a boom time. But the budget, based on what I've seen so far here, is not sufficient.
It's across the county.
I realize that, but that's, I said, I'm putting the selfish EDC hat on, and I'm saying there is not enough money here.
I'll tell you how I look at it, is if we give economic development more money, who do we take it from?
I understand.
And if I may, Chair, I'm acknowledging that across the entire county. All the budget lines are feeling that. And this is why I think to the ratepayers and rural Alberta, this issue of unpaid taxes is front and center, because I think they want their county and their committees to be able to do more, but in a understanding of the current fiscal situation and the loss to the county of millions of dollars, we're talking about diminishing returns when a reasonable resolution to this would create growth in all of the county budget lines. And we're not asking for more money. We're asking to collect the money that is due to us and to have a municipal tax structure that acknowledges that the provincial government creates this opportunity for the rural municipalities to function. There are other questions that are coming in front of council, like the Cultural Arts Center, which we're just not going to be able to do because we don't have the financial resources to do it. And when the provincial government starts to understand the impact that this is having locally in rural Alberta, if it doesn't respond to this situation, then it needs to clearly outline that in its next platform or set of platforms, irregardless of what the party is, on how a resolution to this can be done. And maybe that's what allows us to create a platform for moving forward.
Well, the stress on the county is not just unpaid taxes. MSI funding is getting cut. We've got a new program coming out in, I think it's 24, 25. We don't know anything about yet. The ICFs and the arbitration rulings, that's gonna hurt more than unpaid taxes.
Huge.
So the municipalities are getting hit from all sides. It's not just one group or person that's at fault. It's coming from everywhere.
Well, I think we're acknowledging that as an economic development committee, but I think we're also laying some of this at the feet of the provincial government, saying you need to fix this and you need to support municipal governments. We know it's not going to be an easy road out of this, but without some kind of a platform that supports municipal governments on this issue, it really makes it difficult for an economic development committee to plan 5 or 10 years into the future without having any resources to do it. And we do kind of feel for our councillors here because we know how frustrating it is for them.
Well, and just to kind of remind everybody as well, so we're currently in year 3 of that 5-year economic recovery plan. And so we're not into, I mean, we're still waiting to see what this year's assessments and final budget and everything will look like for the county. But we know the direction for the next 2 years is our ECDEV budget will be frozen at that 1% per year increase. And that's the direction that we have to work on. So, you know, for the next 2 years, we know that things are going to get tighter before they start to get better. That's the tack that we're on with what council has already adopted and with following that 5-year plan. And that's not just ECDEV, that's the county budget as a whole is frozen to within 1%. Well, those last couple of residential tax increases come through, right? Because it was a 5-year plan, 3% per year for the tax increases, and then the budget's frozen to a 1% increase per year, and that's the overall tack that we're on. That's the. Yeah.
Okay, I think we've hashed this
Answered
one
your
out.
question?
Yeah.
So I feel better now.
Okay, yeah, careful
So
what you
I
ask for.
think that there's some good things there in regards to finance, and one is that economic development can be the venue through which we help to grow the tax base and increase investment and increase our tax revenue locally. And we know that the other part of it is we encourage council to do its absolute best to collect everything that we have that's outstanding, and we have some other great bits there as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, can I get a motion?
We'll make a motion to accept the strategic thinking as information.
As amended.
Oh, as amended, sorry.
Yes.
Trying to get my pages right here, sorry. Okay.
Any questions? Okay. Call the question, all in favor? So passed. Next is Alberta Broadband Strategy.
Okay, so with the, talking about direction from the provincial government, we did have, about 2 weeks ago, the provincial broadband strategy was released. And so the full report is attached, as well as there's, I think, a link to the initial press release. The information that's laid out, basically within 5 years, by 2027, they want every Alberta resident to be able to be at that federal standard that we've recognized at 50 on the download, 10 on the upload. And for the first time, to me, the fundamental change in this plan is that the idea that low Earth satellite will be a significant part of being able to deliver that. That's something that that hadn't been in as part of previous parts of things. And so the idea is there's $390 million of provincial money there, which will help to leverage federal money out of that Canada Broadband Fund and out of the other fund that's there through CRTC. And that's the new funding and the new direction. So as broadband is something that is an issue that we know is incredibly important to all of us, and we've had it around our table on a routine basis, I thought best to bring the report for everybody to look at and absorb.
Just from what I understand, it was federal government is gonna match the 390.
Yes.
So he said it's just under 800,000.
800 million.
800 million.
Yeah. So the interesting thing to me is going to be, and this is just purely my observation, we know that we've seen lots of applications for upgrading towers to 5G and different things, and we've undoubtedly benefited within the Fort. I just talked to a Fort resident in the last couple of weeks. She's moved from a TELUS hub to, based on the upgrade that TELUS did on their tower within the Fort, she's now got regular TELUS internet, and she can't believe the difference. It's working incredibly well for her. So that was one of those CRTC funded projects that we were able to get into the county, and that part of it was good. In regards to laying in fiber and all of that, we know that fiber is still absolutely the preferred. And my hope is that just all of this doesn't just go into the low Earth satellite because it's the most affordable option, because there's the least amount of infrastructure required, right? It's certainly an option where things are remote and where you don't have other 5G towers and where you can't have fiber access and that kind of thing come in. But it's going to be very interesting, I think, to see how this money is kind of played out, and we haven't really heard any of the parameters around any of it yet, so.
Questions? Someone want to make a motion? Bishop?
I'll make a motion that the broadband information strategy information be accepted as information.
Leslie makes that motion. Any questions? All vote, all in favor?
Okay, thank you, everybody. So on to our work plan updates. So we've kind of covered through the growth Eda and Wild Alberta, and the one thing that I do want to add, oh my gosh, it was so nice. We actually had an in-person growth meeting. It was great. Had it in the Fort Assiniboine office. It was so nice to see everybody, have everybody in the same room. So that was probably one of the big highlights, was just the fact that we were able to get all of those, as I previously mentioned in the meeting today, great cheerleaders all together within the same room, and that was where we sort of received the presentation, much as what we had received today. and kind of got confirmation on some of the Wild Alberta stuff and all of that. And then, of course, some fundamental conversation there about very similar conversations to what we had under our strategic planning. Man, we could sure do a lot more if we had a little bit more money and resources, and how do we do that, and some of that. And that was really where they've kind of hammered out the idea of the membership with the municipalities, with the $1 versus $1.60 and all of that. So that's basically the main part of the update for the Eda and for the Wild Alberta stuff. I have to admit, the Wilds part of things have kind of become a labor of love for me, and over the course of the last few months, as I'm the only EDO that sits on that board, that WADMO committee is listed within the presentation. But it's been a fair bit of time. I mean, I initially, when I said, yeah, no problem, I'm free, I can do that, I thought, well, you know, we'll have a couple of meetings, you know, maybe one a month, that kind of thing. I mean, the amount of time that the volunteer group, which includes about a half a dozen operators, have put in to bring all of this stuff forward has been absolutely incredible. I mean, we've been meeting every second Monday for at least 2 hours. And in regards to the Trf Application grant, we've had now 4 separate meetings just with Government of Canada TRF staff to kind of tweak and get that together. So it's been a significant amount of time. Like I would say, since the end of December, I've probably put in a good 40 hours just on the Wild file. So, I mean, it's a significant amount of work, but fingers crossed. I think the Phoenix is there, and I was excited to see everybody's reactions today. So, on the agricultural profile, we had a great sort of product launch, is the term that I'm going to use, at the Ag Service Board supper. So we had about 100 plus folks that were there, and Carol had the chance to be there as well. And so there was a handout which featured the letter and then a bit of an introductory piece, and Carol started to work things through. We have the naming contest where we're just finalizing the rules. We're tweaking the rules from the photo contest from last year, so that they kind of fully cover off and do everything that we need them to. But we want it to be a fairly straightforward process. And the idea is to go basically with the 18 and under crowd to submit the names forward. So we've got the naming contest winner. The layout of the magazine, we started to go through kind of a draft layout. So we'll have recognition of the naming rights winner, the welcomes from the elected officials, kind of 3 main sections. So one will be celebration stories, where we're celebrating and talking about kind of the existing part of things. There'll be a section on historical stories, which will be some of the interesting things where we've been able to draw from our past, and there might even be a few tall tales and some things like that included in with that. And then a section on the future of ag within the area, and we're recognizing a number of sources and a number of folks to kind of interview with those. And then a section listing some agricultural resources in regards to finance and business accession and some of that. And then we've kind of called it the Who We Are section, a section that kind of really stresses our local color, maybe a little bit of humor, some of those historical anecdotes, some of those kinds of things. We're looking at greenhousing, farm stores, and the history of the fort as being sort of some of the main articles as it fits in under some of that. And we do have an article that will be going out in the Woodlands Express where Peter will be commenting about the Ag Profile project and all of that. And that's kind of the Ag Profile update. So any questions on that one? Okay, perfect. So that brings me to our virtual career fair. So Aaliyah Elliott, our HR manager, and I attended that on February 24th. It's the first time that we've done it virtually, and there were, as one would expect, some successes and some failures. And we've had a post-event meeting, and it was actually really interesting because I've never seen feedback on an event range so widely. So if we followed the bell curve, just about everything was in the middle of saying, it was good to, it was really good to, it could have been a little better. And then we had a few kind of bits on either end. But for the most part, it was from good to really good was the general amount of feedback we got from the exhibitors and from the students. There was over, and I should have had the number written down, but we had over 1,000 students attend. The big attractions were we had some speaker sessions. So when you came onto the portal, you could go and visit all of the individual booths, or you could go into the speaker sections. And then we had a section with all of the job listings. And it actually flowed and went pretty well. We had over 200 interactions just within our trade show booth with different folks back and forth. So that's kind of every email and text and everything that you have back and forth. We didn't generate any resumes directly from it for the county, but it isn't really the county crowd because you've really got to be 18 and above to apply for the county positions that we had that were there. But in regards to information and having the presence and supporting the other companies that were there, I think it went pretty well overall. The post-meeting discussion was a very interesting one because the idea is okay, so this is cheaper. It's about half the price of if we do it as an in-person event, where we rented the Miller Center and have the display company come out and do all of that. The logistics are cheaper because the schools don't have to bus the kids and all of that. It's safer. The kids are more engaged because they're in their classroom environment still and all of that. So those were all of the things on the plus column. On the minus column was, well, it's not in person, so people don't quite have the same interaction. We did have a couple of our vendors that they weren't really able to figure out how to use the platform to their advantage. And so it's like, well, they're not quite sure about it. So it was really interesting. So where we're at with it is at our next meeting, we're going to make the decision as to whether or not we would do an event this fall. We do have enough money left in the budget that we could do another virtual event this fall, but we're not sure as the planning committee yet as to whether or not that's going to be what goes forward. And so our next meeting will undoubtedly be an interesting one because we have some folks that are championing, yes, it's got to be done as an in-person event the way we did it before. And we have others saying, well, wait a minute, if this is cheaper and easier for everybody, maybe this is the way to go forward. So it'll be undoubtedly an interesting meeting. But the fundamental question is, are we going to do one this fall or not? And where I'm kind of sitting on it is, honestly, I don't really know that we should do a fall one this year. That's kind of where I'm at with it. And again, it comes back to when you look at our ECDev budget, if we can reallocate some of that, there's some other things like International ECDev Week and possibly the Hydrogen Conference and some other things that we could maybe reallocate some of that too. So the next thing up, one of the next things up on the updates is the Lemonade Day. So we do have the request from Community Futures to be a Lemonade Day sponsor, and what they would like to do is to this year host in Fort Assiniboine as their county location. And so if the county if the committee is amenable to that, we can certainly do that. However, we don't have that $500 in as a budgeted item, but we do have a $500 allocation to our Career Expo trade show booth. And because we haven't used it yet, we could reallocate that $500 towards Lemonade Day. There might be some other places to find it too, but just because it's 500 to 500, to me, that was one of the things that sort of made the most sense to recommend. So, yeah, the virtual career fair was good. I'm sure that, I don't know if the spring is the better time to do it or if the fall is the better time to do it. Yes, please, go ahead.
Just with the virtual career fair, one of the things, and full disclosure, this time I didn't get to participate in the virtual career fair, mostly just because with work it just didn't align on that particular day. But we did, with our business, participate in the last 2 in-person career fairs.
Okay.
Both times we hired from those fairs, and both times they were not students.
Okay.
So for me, that was one of the big things, is that there's actually quite a number of adults that would come through and that would have been missed this time likely in this virtual career fair.
Well, so we did have, so I know in our stats from past fairs, we have had up to 500 adult job seekers that have come through. I think on this one we had about 150. Because the other advantage that we had this year with it being virtual was it was actually listed on the Provincial directory for career fairs. So we know that we did have some job seekers that came in and that were part of it that were from outside of the region. So we did have, again, it's another one of those gain losses kind of thing, right? So we did gain a little bit more that way. We didn't have as many there as what we've had in person in the past, but we know that we did have a few of them. And I know Christy's working on kind of compiling those final numbers, because we had opened up the BSN registrations and that kind of thing as well, so that anybody that had wanted to attend that Todd Hirsch event could attend and could kind of hang out and be part of the career fair as a whole as well, right?
I know the feedback I had just based on the students that I spoke with was that they certainly would prefer the in-person. And those are just the students that I personally spoke with.
No,
So-
and I think that was kind of the undercurrent, right? The kids love the half day away from school, and they love to be there and all of that in person. But it was funny because it was some of the teachers that were like, "Oh man, it was so much easier because we didn't have to arrange the buses and the food," and so it's the committee's torn, I have to admit.
I honestly think we're robbing them of the hands-on though, because like our presentation at our booth for what we do is we physically bring in a dummy camera, we bring in our device, we set it up so that the students can actually pick up the equipment, they can look at a video, and it's just physically touching the equipment, whether it's some of these career fairs, I've seen them, like with Nate, like the spray painting guns and stuff like that they've done, some of those types of things, that I think it's a disservice to the students if we don't consider doing it in person.
Okay. Thank you.
Just being a past member that served on that and was in the original group that developed it, I'm gonna leave this to the wisdom of that group. They really do have some challenges with them that can be addressed with new technologies, and certainly I know the student experience, especially with the post-secondary institutions, being able to walk up to an institution representative and start their application to post-secondary at that event was fundamental. They really, but this committee is trying to get the most out of each of these possible experiences, and I'm just gonna suggest that we leave that to their wisdom. But I am hearing you, Bert, that if we don't go ahead with a fall career event, that there is money in our budget that we could reallocate $500 to the Lemonade Day and remaining funds or portion of those funds to the Hydrogen Conference.
Well, possibly for hydrogen or for something else, but yeah, that is one of the items that I wanted to come to a little bit later on.
Oh, okay, we'll talk about it later.
So the EDA conference coming up on April 6th to 8th, we have Councillor Prestige confirmed to attend. Myself, I'll be attending, Councillor Dean will be attending, and Ruth Burrows will be attending, but through the RMA. So he'll be both a rep from Woodlands and from the RMA. And then Mayor Jabush from Alberta Municipalities, they're funding for her to go. So we'll have the RETA represented and that kind of thing as well. So they've basically filled the venue to the rafters. The property Kananaskis, they've got over 500 in-person registrants and about another 100 that'll be there virtually. So it's going to be incredibly exciting. It'll be the first conference of that size that I think some of us have been to in the last 2.5 years. So that comes with its own joy and excitement and a bit of trepidation, but
Just in regards to finances and kind of shuffling here, right? The shell game with money. Boot camps. Has there been any discussion, and if not, then that's finances also, right?
Yes, so we do have the boot camp financing within the budget. I haven't heard a yes or a no yet. My assumption is that if they go forward with them, we know our money is earmarked, and we'll have that the same as what we've done in past years, which is an annual $5,000 contribution.
It's a great,
Just,
can be.
is there, like ever throughout the year where you bring out an updated budget form?
We can certainly do that, and yes, I could make a promise to bring that to our next meeting. We can kind of show you where we're at with what's been spent so far. Sure. And we are, is it monthly that council is getting the budget updates as well? Because
Quarterly.
quarterly, so we do offer quarterly budget update for the county as a whole through council meetings as well. But thank you, that's more of a reminder than a request, because I should be doing that routinely. Okay, so that was the EDA conference. We are also working, Woodlands is working with the Chamber and with the town of Whitecourt and with our local COPA group to put together a bid for the 2023 National Fly-In event. So we're in the beginning of the planning process of that. I believe May 1st is our deadline when we have to have that in. But we've got weekly meetings happening on that now with a planning group of some of our admin staff and the airport manager and those other folks. And we're doing our best to work together to put in as strong a bid as possible. And then the trade fair, as we mentioned, is on the 27th, 28th, and 29th of May. We do have $1,000 allocated, I believe, for clothing, and another $500 allocated for that trade show booth for upgrades to signs and that sort of thing. And we will have a few promotional items. We've got a number of things that we have that are in stock, and we can probably order in some other things specific to the trade show. So that's one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, I know in the past that's been a pretty big event and that kind of thing for us. I know the Chamber is excited to be having a trade fair for the first time, and I think it'll be 3 years since the last one. So how would the committee like to proceed on that? Do you want me to have kind of a subcommittee or a steering group, or what? Should we do something like that, or do you want me just to bring back a proposal for the trade fair? Because we do represent not just economic development, but the county as a whole with that. And generally in the past, what we've done is we've had a number of county staff that have been there. Sometimes some of our fire folks and that kind of thing have come and have helped us out with manning the booth over the 3 days and with doing some of that. So it's a pretty major time commitment kind of event. And it does take an hour or two to set the booth up and do the tear down and all of that kind of stuff too, so.
Just a question for Claire. Is this our committee that looks after this, the trade fair, or is it the council?
So it's basically, it's a task that's delegated to our committee, and it's something that's funded through our ECDev budget, but we do kind of take county-wide direction on it. So, but I mean, we certainly have the ability, like the invite to include Wild Alberta, I think that's a wonderful idea. And if we say, hey, that's part of the direction that we want to go, is we make sure that we've got Wild included, that's fantastic. Really, the big thing comes down to manpower, because you need to have at least 2 or 3 people in that booth pretty much at all times. So throughout the course of the couple of days in the past, we've had some staff that have come out and that have kind of been part of things, but it's also, we've had council, and I think in the past, Economic Development Committee people as well.
Actually, Patricia was.
No, that's okay, go ahead. My question's answered.
What is the purpose of having a trade booth open in Whitecourt? What are we trying to promote there?
that's where the booth at the trade fair comes as part of our platinum membership with the chamber.
Okay.
And so whatever we want to do with it is that's committee direction, right?
Okay.
So it's to represent us on the economic development side, but it's also a county booth as a whole. So we can do whatever we would like to do to represent the county. And I mean, having Wild there could mean, maybe we have some kind of a paddle board or something set up, right? I mean, there's lots of, like, it can be a very active, very themed kind of thing if that's what we want it to be.
Onto that trade fair is, there is a lot of county residents go to that trade fair.
Yeah.
Tricia?
The other thing about the trade fair that I think that's so incredibly important is there's so many people that are there promoting. So for even everybody on the committee that can go and attend, even if they just go and walk around and see all of our local booths and what they're promoting, because there may even be somebody on there that we're not aware of yet. And just as it being a support, having the booth there to support their business and know that the county is there interested in what they're doing and, learning about whatever it is that they're offering.
So if we proceed then with the idea that we definitely want to be there, have a strong county presence, be there with Wild. If you guys are comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that direction to kind of lay out some feelers and some ideas, and I'll bring you an update for our next meeting as to kind of our perceived direction. Does that work okay?
To complement it, perhaps, a year or so ago, we were looking at what are products within the county in order to put in that provincial box. Remember that?
Yep.
Maybe there's an opportunity to have products that, whether they're agriculture, because you're trying to increase the agricultural profile, or the Blue Ridge Farms, or the Buffalo Backward Farm, like some products there that are representative of the county, because then maybe that'll draw people to that booth rather than picking up a brochure. Then they'll watch the video. People like food, or something that they can go home with that is isn't very expensive, like $5 per gem. I don't know what it is, but I'm just trying to think, what are we trying to promote in our county right now? One is agriculture. People like food. What are I don't know. I'm just trying to think of other things that we have. We have lots. We have tons of beautiful things.
Crystal?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I know we've been trying to catalog all of the private operators doing
Business.
ag foods and tourism. Maybe this is a good opportunity to throw some feelers out and see if people want access to the booth. They want to come in and help man it and work with the county.
I know in the past, the county has done that. We've actually taken multiple spots at trade shows, and then we've invited other folks to come in and kind of subsidized and done all of that. We only have the 1 10 by 10 space. So that's where I love the idea of what can we do to identify and bring some attention to some of the local products and the local things. I wonder about the booth space because it's only 10 by 10, but
If we have a shelf,
I
yeah,
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, there's a couple of things we can do, and instead of doing like a generic promo item, right, like giving out a stress ball or pens or that kind of thing, maybe we focus more on giving out samples of local products or something like that, right? And stretch that $500 as far as we can stretch it.
I would like to see is if we had a TV screen and we had a close-up of a business and their products, and then it flashed to a next one, and just on
Oh,
a
yeah, that's a good
rotation
idea.
basis. That way, we're not looking for space or anything, and get as many people as we can on that screen. Tricia?
I'd like to see the theme be community partnerships and have the whole theme of our booth basically be attracting, like say, I don't know if we can have a competition, if we have a little bit of a budget, maybe there's something that we can do a basket of local certificates or coupons or something like this, and have that as a thing for dropping off your business card and registering for our business directory.
Yeah, we've certainly done door prize draws and that kind of thing before, and I really like that.
Business.
I'm making notes.
Yeah.
And have it specifically for the businesses, this, like, not just for, every participant, but to win the basket, you have to enter the business directory.
Wild will need a television also, if they come.
Yeah.
Something that is eye-catchy, and maybe one person only has to be there rather than 2 or 3.
Well, and I mean, yeah, we don't need a full-on TV, but I mean, we've certainly got some larger monitors that we
Yeah,
can probably
something
leverage. And
electronic.
if you've got a monitor and a computer setup, I'm sure we can make that part of things work. And okay.
And please encourage the survey, the internet survey that day too.
And
I'm
actually,
just saying that.
I know Nikita's always very quiet, but I'm going to tap our executive producer on the shoulder and say, we've had it sent out once for sure, and I think probably it's slated to go another couple of times.
Yeah, I've seen it once
But we
on
have it
Facebook.
good, excellent, so that
I
RMA info
look.
is out.
I look. I
Thank you
complain
very
about
much,
it all
and
the
thank you,
time.
Nikita.
And I'm gonna go a step further, and you can sign me up for 6 hours on one of those days.
Okay,
I would volunteer some hours too.
That's easy.
I'll also volunteer some hours for it, for sure.
And as council, I think we all go.
I think
Put us beside the coffee booth.
people like to see the councillors out, their wards, right
There must
beside
be
the
wine
coffee.
tasting at this thing by now, isn't there?
We were in at the Edmonton
Didn't
Sports
one of
Show
the jewelry stores have a
last
draw
weekend.
for a diamond ring?
Yeah, there's usually
Yeah,
something
there
we
was a
need.
diamond ring draw and a few other things. Okay,
Bring a heater, because sometimes it's cold in there.
thank you very much to all of our committee members for those great ideas and that influx of things. I've got some things to work on, but we're gonna have a rock and trade show booth.
We've got nice little new,
And then that covers through most of it. The one item that I did want to mention, and Art had mentioned it a bit earlier, so the Hydrogen Conference is coming up in Edmonton. That's at the end of April. It's from the 26th to the 28th. Initially, the plan was that I would attend, and I know Councillor Prestidge, you were planning on attending, and Councillor Dean also had planned to attend. Because of other commitments that have come up, our 2 councillors cannot attend. So as it stands right now, I'm basically going to the Hydrogen Conference, and I'll be there on my own, which I'm not too worried about it, but I hope the committee is comfortable. There is, I mean, depending on the decisions that the committee wants to make and how we want to do it, registration is $1,500. Hotel rooms are about $120 to $130 a night is what I'm finding them at right now for downtown Edmonton. And then it would be a matter of paying the honorarium, which we don't have within that part of the budget. But it's roughly about $3,000 basically for somebody to go and to attend. So there is that opportunity that if you wanted to move the money away from the virtual career fair for the fall, there might be an opportunity to send somebody else from the committee to go to the Hydrogen Conference.
Well, I know when we talked about the Hydrogen Conference and the lead up to this, having our other 2 councillors attending and then developing a strategy to meet with the companies that are in this area was an important part of that. And if our 2 councillors can't go, then I mean, I'm not gonna hide this, I would really like to work with Bert on this and attend that conference and develop a strategy around approaching these companies before the conference, meeting with them, and then setting ourselves up for success both at the Global Energy Show and our SiteLink conference, where some serious investment could come to this area and support a project like this. So, but we need to work within our budget. So I think, Bert, you would need to approach and determine what's happening with the career fair. If that event is going, we continue to support it. If they decide that it's in the wind, then, you know, do you need a motion to change that and support the Lemonade Day and this? Or do we just leave that to your discretion?
Well, it certainly, because it's a reallocation, it certainly makes sense that we would have a motion to that effect if that's what the committee is in favor of. And so I was going to double check my date here as to when our next planning meeting is in regards to the fall part of things, because I want to say that we have a plan for early April.
Well, if they're gonna do the virtual one in fall, we don't know when that's gonna be, and
Yeah.
the hydrogen one is in April.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If
So,
they
we
would.
won't be able to take funds and transfer it over there, because we don't know till fall whether they're gonna have a virtual.
I thought what Bert was
Well-
saying was they may not have a fall one at all.
Yeah, we
so
don't know that yet.
we do have a meeting scheduled on April 5th for the Career and Education Expo, and I should know at that meeting whether we're intending to do the fall event or not. So depending as to what the committee wants to do, I mean, we could say, you know, based on the outcome of that meeting, there's the opportunity to reallocate funds if needed, right?
I was just wondering if there's anyone else on council that isn't on the committee that wants to go to the hydrogen show as well. Because part of the reason of having councillors go was because they were using their budget.
Whether it could be, I'm not sure.
That
But
would-
I'm not sure what,
There was, I think it was a scheduling conflict with a council meeting, or it's with a major council event. That's why
Yeah.
you guys had both had to pull back.
If, depending upon the allocation of funds, I think art is a logical choice to go. Just because your science background, your involvement with the Energy Roadshow and all that. It is nice to have a counselor so that there is the strategic planning, but maybe there's someone in another committee who has the kind of background that would be where there can be a joint effort between a couple of these committees or another member at large, or you ladies, like, I'm out. I wouldn't understand it like Art would. Like, that's just the truth.
Also, just, yeah, I agree with you. One of the things, the thinking of other committees or other local stakeholders. Do we know who's going from Whitecourt? Is that somebody that, you know, is there any partnership there, or Barhead County, or, I mean, that might be even a little further, but is there anybody in the private sector that you know from this area that's going? Like, ideally, I just can't see going in there, like any one person going in is better than no people, but it'd be nice to have a team.
Yeah.
You know, where you're going with at least 3 people
Now,
and showing that we take this
Covering
seriously.
more
This
sessions
is,
and everything.
yeah, like this is a presence,
That was
and I
the point.
really think that this is probably the most impactful thing that we have for future planning that's happening in the last 3 years.
And it comes up
So
provincially
the
all the
other
time.
option that's there is, the trade show attendance is free. And so if we want someone just to go to attend and walk the trade show floor, that's a much more affordable option. It doesn't get into the strategic sessions, which is where all of the information and all of that is, right?
Okay.
But that is another option. I don't know of anyone else from the region yet that is attending, and I was actually quite surprised by that. But we've got no other reps going from the RETA that I'm aware of. I've only talked to 2 other EDOs that I know of that are planning to attend so far. But I don't know of anyone else right now who's planning on going or sending a contingent.
Is there anyone from the roadshow?
I really like the idea of sending someone to just walk around and do the pre-meetings before and know who you're gonna go in and talk to. And then it could be just hotels, meals, and whatever comp that we're doing. And we could send someone like Art.
Absolutely.
I think what we would do is try and build a team. If the 2 of us could attend the event, then we're build a team locally here, but also get in touch with the companies that have their CEOs out of this community that will be attending that event to build that team, but also strategically for the Global Energy Show and the site conference that we're going to be hosting here. As we've seen changes in the energy market, there is a whole new investment in conflict-free resources that has started to generate a conversation here globally. And the Site Link Conference is a real opportunity to lever forward our relationship that we've already started into an investment relationship, which is hydrogen-based. And I know, Bert, you mentioned that other municipalities aren't maybe as involved with this, and it's because they don't have the geology that we have. The geology in this region is perfect for carbon capture. They need to regenerate the Windfall field, and the proximity of Whitecourt with the new pipelines that are available to the heartland makes it a very logical choice. And we just need to advance that discussion with these groups. Now, I know I'm sounding a little passionate about it, but I really think it is a great opportunity for the county.
But we're on Lemonade Day right now.
Yeah,
We're so far off topic on it. Let's get back to the meeting.
Okay, I thought we were doing both of them. No, my motion.
No, so on the Lemonade Day part of it, I guess the question would be just, is there a motion that we participate and that we reallocate 500 out of the ECDEV budget that we would sponsor?
I'll make that motion, that we reallocate the $500. So from the active budget for the lead day in Fort Assiniboine.
Okay. Any questions?
Where are we reallocating that money from?
I would have to find it specifically, but what I'm thinking is it would probably come out of, right now, that Career Expo booth is, because it's an equal amount item, so it makes sense to kind of look at that, and then we can take a look at if there is a fall conference or a fall trade show. We'll bring what we have on hand, basically, right?
Call the question. All in favor? So passed.
Perfect, thank you. And so that was Patricia and that one Kate. So that covers the Lemonade Day. And then that moves us to the Fort Assiniboine meeting. And you're right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did kind of skip ahead there a bit. So with the Fort Assiniboine meeting, Crystal had an opportunity to get a bit of a public service ad and some public space and reach out to some of our Fort Assiniboine folks and conducted a pretty exciting meeting with some great feedback. And I'll turn it over to Crystal.
So, yeah, we held a community steering meeting in Fort Assiniboine, and part of that was so that I could share what we're doing on the Economic Development Board with community members and find out if there's certain projects that they want me to be really advocating for here. We talked about quite a bit of stuff. I think I'll just read the layout I sent to Bert afterwards.
Yes, and I can share the email with everybody. I haven't shared it yet, but I'll let you do it, and then we can send it out as an update.
So we had about 15 community members come out. 5 of those were brand new members to Fort Assiniboine. There was a lady there that's looking to start a yoga class, and a guy that is looking to facilitate a private type of homeschool learning pod, private school type idea. A couple of things that we discussed were the opportunity that geothermal presents with relation to greenhouse activities as a heating source. There was interest about the government requirements that would be needed to build a greenhouse structure at or in close proximity to existing well properties and use the processed water as heat exchange. There wasn't enough information to kind of keep that conversation going. So we kind of transitioned to tourism, and that was much more enthusiastic. So we talked about the creation of walking or cycling trail networks that connect maybe Blue Ridge, Fort Assiniboine, and Whitecourt along the river, with takeout and put-in spots for different sorts of river activities. BMX trails, a campground, dedicated ATV riding trails in the Sandhills by Viga, the creation of an area structure plan, so we have a development strategy for future commercial and retail space, a scaled-back tri-leisure center with a gymnasium and open public access that could house a daycare and play space. I was able to promote the Site Selector Conference, the Egg Profile Committee, and I inquired about who knew of the business website and the resources that the county provides to businesses. And nobody that attended that meeting had any idea what any of those things were. So that was good. There was a discussion about reducing red tape to make it more efficient to apply for development permits, and how the process made it intimidating and daunting to people who want to start a business. But they don't have any development experience, and how that is a roadblock before people even start anything, which I thought was pretty valuable feedback. And then there was a discussion that kind of led to a request from a community member that the county look at putting a weigh scale somewhere accessible to the public. And I actually heard that quite a bit while I was out campaigning. So a drive-on scale. Which seems random, but it wasn't. And so yeah, all in all, I think we had a great discussion, and we're looking at hosting another meeting late summer, early fall to kind of talk about updates and any projects that we could move forward with, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. Excellent.
Just wondering about the weigh scale. What were the requests for the weigh scale related to? Was it weighing grain or forestry products or just trucking or?
So the conversation that led to the request was about trading goods and creating a community where we could trade feed for livestock, for other services that are available. And one of the community members said that, the Timu mill used to have a scale that community members used all the time to weigh trucks and water, all kinds of things, and now it's gone. And so it's being missed.
We looked at that when Timu shut down, of buying the scale and putting it in, and the cost was just prohibited.
Really,
Like it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
to put in a weigh scale.
I find that very interesting, but there is a new opportunity that's come with Canfor coming to this area. And they typically have the remote weigh scales. They have a remote weigh scale in the timber yard up at Fox Creek, where all the weighing can be done as timber comes in this direction. And I know that there's a significant amount of timber that's traded between Slave Lake and the region to the east of that. That all comes through the Fort Assiniboine area. That might be an interesting way to get a scale out in that area, because I know that the drivers really take advantage of those scales. There's one on just past Piers on Highway 16 as you turn off there, and they're using it all the time. Is there a scale in Barhead though? I don't think so.
Would be the grain elevator.
At the grain
At the grain elevator, maybe. Yeah, but that's a little ways to drive, especially when a lot of that truck traffic is coming through there anyway.
It'd be a good opportunity for a business that's already in the area to put a weigh scale in, and they charge so much to use it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who would.
Well, I know in our strategic plan, we have meetings with forestry companies. That might be a good one to put on there, just to see if there could be some sharing that happened there with them putting a scale in, or if they had the old Timeo scale. I don't know if it's still there. It's gone, okay. So
It sold for a lot of money.
oh, it did, okay. All right. But I like the idea.
Lots of of old green elevators around the province. Just saying.
They kind of have a different type of scale that's built in.
Oh.
Patricia?
Can we get a copy of your report as well? Is that what Bert said? He'll share that email? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
You bet. So, yeah, I know Crystal and I had a chance to talk a couple times before the meeting, and I tried to arm her as best I possibly could, but I think she did a pretty darn good job, kind of trying to orient some arrows and come up with a couple of things that might be actionable. And the one thing that I think you'd said yesterday was, you know, if we have an actionable item that we know that we can pull through on in the next little while, that would be really meaningful, I think, to the folks in that region, wouldn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Good job
Okay.
on that, Kristen.
Yeah. Thank you.
With that, any more questions?
No, just after we are done with this one, can we take a quick break?
You mentioned.
Okay.
Any motion on to accept that as information?
Sure, I'll make that motion that we accept the work plan updates as information.
Okay. Any questions? Call the question, all in favor? It's passed. Now we'll take a 5-minute break. Good. Take it back into the meeting, so now we are at Blue Sky. Take it away, Brendan.
Sorry, I just need to note our time. Um, Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so on the blue sky discussion, there were a couple of items there that are written. It's certainly interesting. I mean, we did note that through the census, we have a 5-year trend where it looked like, our population is down a bit. Based on the information from the OWL, the last couple of quarters have been good. We've started to see people starting to come back into Alberta again. So it isn't our area directly, but it seems like the job demand and the growth and everything are coming back up. There was the report about the farm cash receipts in 2021, and so those were up a little bit, so that was good news. Given world events, it is incredibly interesting watching Europe go through the gyrations and everything they're going through right now to get off of Russian oil and gas. And when you look at the article, the proven oil reserves by country, I mean, Canada is, I think we were number 4 overall. And, we're the only non-conflict country that can easily supply Europe. We just don't have the capacity to because of not enough room in pipelines and ports. And it's incredibly sad that is the way the world is, but we have the resource, we just can't get it out to anybody. It's frustrating. The article on Edson was a very, very positive one, and that Energy Now publication is a publication that's got a very excellent energy focus, and they tend to pick up on a lot of kind of trends and different things. So it's pretty exciting to see the activity that's happening there, and we know that is coming on the way for us with commodity pricing being where it's at. And then that last article on the flared gas I thought was interesting because it kind of aligns with some of the conversations that we've had previously about how can you use some of the existing resources for above ground parts of things. And that was part of what came out of your meeting, Crystal, as well. You had that idea raised again there. The biggest hurdle that we have with that is, again, provincial regulation, because a company can have the rights to the underground and they can do whatever they want to with the oil and gas, but you can't build on the surface unless you get the permission from the province, because they don't have surface rights with those oil and gas leases. So you have to be able to be in a spot where you have both the underground and the surface lease available, and then it's just a county development permit and you can put whatever you want to on the surface, right? But it is, huge opportunity there, but it seems like it's probably more convoluted than it needs to be. And that was the issue that we'd gone through previously with a couple of companies that were looking at co-locating some facilities and some things. So that was it for the blue sky discussion.
The Bitcoin miners, there's 5 or 6 that started up in the West Lock County, and they're looking to shut them down.
How come?
Kind of did it illegally.
Yeah.
And
There was,
the province is going to be stepping in on Bitcoin
there
mining.
was the one in Strathcona County that they opened up and they were in exactly the same situation, but they were located in a residential area, and they hadn't really indicated the noise and the lights and all of the stuff that was going to be happening on the exterior, and Strathcona County had to shut that operation down as well. So
So I think there'll be new regulations coming out for that shortly.
and I think just with cryptocurrency in general, up until now, crypto has not been governed by nation states, and I think you're going to see, given the sanctions on Russia and the fact that crypto is being used as a way to get around sanctions, I think it's just a matter of time until you start to see some sanctions around how cryptocurrency is used and traded, and it may end up not being as wide open as it is right now, but that's just personal speculation. And that's it for Blue Sky.
Okay, this is the spot if somebody wants to make a motion to the effect of switching that money around.
Oh, okay, perfect. So, just in regards to, okay. Then, for that, I guess the only question, and when Arda brought it up, that I had was, you won't know for sure if they're going forward with that until the meeting on April 8th, right?
April 5th is what I've got on my calendar as our
April
meeting
5th.
date, so fingers crossed that date stays and that we'll know by then kind of the idea and the direction for a fall part of things, right? But yeah, I mean, in going through the budget quickly, I've got a copy of it here printed with me, and I really don't see any other budget item large enough that there's anything else that we could reallocate that, you know, and even going back to our discussion last fall when the budget was first brought forward, we did have to allocate and pull money out of parade candy and parade float to make sure that we had enough to send a staff member to be able to go to the hydrogen conference. So, yeah, it makes sense to have a contingent and a team and have as strong a presence there as we possibly can have, for sure. But, you know, as we've talked about, it's the committee's budget to use, but we've got budget restrictions, so.
Like, I feel we're sending burnt already. We take $3,000 out of that to send art, where, you know, we still got another 7 months to go through before, well, no, until the end of the year for our budget.
Yeah.
And if something else comes up, we don't have any money for nothing. We do have representation there. It's nice to have other people there, but we are under budget constraints.
So currently, how much money is left in the virtual booth budget? Or sorry, in the trade, in the expo.
Right, so the,
Sorry.
we did pay 2,500 towards the use of the feed loop online tool,
Right.
but we paid that prior to December, so that 2,500 actually came out of last year.
Okay.
Because we didn't have the trade fair, the in-person trade fair last year, so we were able to pay that out of last year's budget to be able to fund the purchase of the online tool. So we've got the feed loop tool now through until the end of this year. And then a fresh budget allocation. So basically what we did was we used 2,500 out of last year's budget to be our allocation towards the event that we just had on February 24th. And then now we have the fresh $4,000 for a planned in-person event for this fall. That's where that 4,000 is allocated right now.
So the 4,000 that we used or how much did it cost for our last in-person event?
We had 4,000, and then we would have had, I think we had 500 or 1,000 allocated towards the booth for handout items and for that kind of thing as well.
So the actual cost of the booth?
So there is, because we're an event sponsor, there is no cost for our booth.
Okay.
But what we've done is we've matched the town funding for that event. And so in the past, we've given $4,000 towards the Career Expo event as a whole.
So currently for us to participate in a live event, if there is a live event in the fall, then we have no cost of the booth. The only cost that we would actually have would be for whatever promotional materials we'd be sharing?
Promo materials and staff time. If we do it virtually in the fall,
Yeah.
yes, that's a fair assessment.
If we did it in person in the fall?
Then it would probably be that full 4,000 allocation we'd have to put forward because we would be an event sponsor once again.
Do we have to be an event sponsor for it to happen?
It's the committee's budget.
I think if
I'm sorry to have to give the
No,
cryptic
but it's
answer,
true, if the Woodlands didn't sponsor something to bring jobs in, I don't think that'd be a wise decision.
Which is true, and
Yeah.
that's fair enough, like
Like, just the whole. face
Well,
of
and
it.
that being said, even if it is an online event,
Yeah.
there probably would be something, like even though the feed loop platform is paid for, there, whatever the sponsor request amount would be, it would make sense that it would apply to Woodlands, right? So
Is there any way we can make that $4,000 into 2,000?
I can ask on the 5th, and we can try and figure out where we're at.
Because oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Art has on it.
Well, I don't think I want to change the career fair budget line. I just, if it's not being spent on that, I really think that this is an opportunity. And the reason that I feel we should invest a second member going is because of the Global Energy Conference, and more importantly, because of the SiteLink event that we're hosting that is designed to attract investment to this region. And I know that the conversation around hydrogen is evolving. It's still early days. But a facility needs to be built in Alberta, and Woodlands County is gotta be on that short list. So if that budget line is not going to be used and we have an indication of that on April 5th, then the motion would be to reallocate that budget line to the hydrogen conference. If there's some ambiguity or anything around that, then we leave that up to the discretion of our EDO to make a decision on that. But that is the spirit, I think, of the discussion that we've had here, and thoughts on that.
With that also, Patricia's saying she is going. So that's, we can maybe complement that involvement too. Then we do have, although I know you have the background and the work you've done, and no disrespect there, we do have Patricia who is planning to attend somewhat. So we do have, at least we have two rather than one or zero, you know.
Awesome, and thank you for that. My biggest thing with it is that in this situation, like I'm sure that I can commit to go for a day, as long as nothing goes sideways and I get called on an emergency. But for that reason specifically, even if I, plan to attend for the day or the whole conference, I would still actually put my vote behind Art going, simply because he's had more involvement with the conferences in the past, with the Global Energy Show and with SiteLink.
Can we split something?
No, I'm not looking for compensation.
No,
Yeah,
but
that
maybe
part of
there's
it.
something there, you never know, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think we
Oh,
sorry, I apologize.
I really appreciate the committee direction and discussion on this, and I'm almost thinking that the motion that maybe comes out of this, because, we've got a couple of unknowns and that, I think the direction and the consensus is probably there to say, have the EDO investigate the best possible options for sending a second ECDEV committee member.
Yeah.
And come back with a price. And I think that if you guys are comfortable with that and you give me direction to do that, I can put all of that together, and then that way, if things change as of that meeting on the 5th, then we know that there might be something there, because honestly, I mean, the strategic sessions we hope are going to be pretty good, but as you mentioned, Councillor Prestige, we just don't know, right? I mean, this is the first time they've done the conference. Maybe having just two of us there to walk around the trade fair, maybe that is one of the best values, right? And so I can do a little bit of further investigation. So I think that would be pretty good direction if the committee is okay with that.
So to clarify, it's $1,500 for access to the strategic part of the conference?
Yes,
And
yeah,
you
so-
are already going to that?
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
paid for out of the county's operational budget?
That's paid for out of our ECDEV budget, and that was where, prior to Christmas, when we had first brought the ECDEV budget forward, we'd done that reallocation out of the parade candy and the parade float stuff.
So it's $1,500 per person then,
It's
not per entity?
$1,534 just for the strategic session, yeah.
Yeah, and then plus
And then plus
everything else.
the meals, expenses, and honorarium, right?
Okay.
And so that may be, one of the options may be, maybe it is just, ends up being a bit of a day trip, right? I mean, maybe we have Art come in, do the trade fair. There's a couple of things that I can investigate. So if the committee's comfortable and you guys give me direction, I can put forward a couple of different options with some price points.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. So you need a motion from the committee to enable you to move in that direction.
It's probably good to have that clarity on direction. I think it makes sense. And then it cues it up that, you know, post that meeting on the 5th. If there is the opportunity, then it gives you guys something that you can kind of draw from. And if it's, it makes it easier to formulate a motion and have something approved at that next committee meeting, which would be in advance of the conference anyways, later in April.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I can go ahead and make a motion that Bert can go ahead and investigate, just trying to, sorry, investigate options for the most efficient pricing to have a second person attend the conference. And report back to us preferably April 6th if that's possible.
Perfect.
Okay. Just in respect of if it's arts time, so there's, if we're not able to do it, then it'd be nice to know earlier.
Well, plus then, if I may, Chair, then Bert, that gives you a chance to look at the conference as it's developing, and then come up with what you feel is the best strategy for us at this hydrogen conference. But to be clear, if there is funds becoming available, it's only because the career fair budget line has become available.
Right.
No, and their website has changed significantly. I was on it yesterday for the first time in probably about 10 days, and I'm like, oh, wow, there's a lot more detail here now. So I have some research to do, for sure.
With respect to wiggle room, what you said too.
Okay, so I've got that as EDO will investigate options to have a second person attend the hydrogen conference and then report back by April 6th. So I'll shoot that email out and we'll be able to.
And it should funds become available from
No,
an
not
unused
yet.
budget?
Not yet.
Or is that different?
That's
No,
different.
I'll do this part first, and then that way you guys will have some options and some things to consider.
Okay.
And then we can,
We could call a meeting to discuss that after.
yeah.
Okay.
Or
These kinds of different
if there's
bucket
consensus, then we can have a motion that's passed at the next meeting as well, because we would still be in advance. Okay,
Call the question, all in favor? So passed.
okay, thank you for that, everybody, and the rest of that is.
Do we need a motion for the Blue Sky?
Yes.
I will make a motion that we accept the Blue Sky information as information.
I almost missed that part.
Any questions? That's all question, all in favor? Next is constant and never-ending improvement.
Okay, so I went a step further. I actually got it onto the meeting package and it's its own section. But even going back and reviewing kind of the last meeting, I'm like, okay, I'm still not quite sure. So, Patricia, please.
Okay, well, it's great that it's on there, so I figured I see that it was on there, I better use it, or else they'll be like, man, what did you want this on there for? So basically, one of the things we had brought forward before was you were changing the strategic plan, the goals.
Yeah.
And you changed the format from that to Excel, which is great, makes it a lot easier to manipulate and work with and update. So basically, what I'd like to do is, my proposal is that we add 3 columns to that strategic information, strategic plan. And the first column I would like to see added, if we could, is an item number. So, and if we can set the item number, something like year, item number, and then maybe an O and or an F, like something ongoing or something that has a finite time. So then that way, if there's something that lives on here for 5 years, it's always the same item number. And then if you want to search what's been done in that item number in Excel, you can filter it for that item number and you can find everything that's been done on that item in history. So it would just make it a lot easier going forward when you're looking to get information.
Okay, I think that's wonderful. I just want to add one thing. I
Yeah.
have it actually as a word chart, not in Excel, because I'm not an Excel.
Oh, and then if you, well, actually with that, if you'd like, email it to me in Word.
Okay,
I'll put it in Excel for you
okay,
and set it up and send it back to you,
okay.
if you want, so.
I can certainly do that. I'm willing to make any changes, but if you can convert it into that, we probably have other staff on site that can do that too, but.
It'll only take me a few minutes, it's no problem. But
Because
just-
I know for me, I sit there and
And the
Excel and
I-
I like to argue a lot, I'll just put it that way.
No worries, because these changes, the idea is that it'll help the meeting be even more efficient by focusing on key components at the most opportune times. So then when we're looking at it and when you're looking at it, so the first was to add a column for item number, the second was to add a column for priority at the end, and so that we can put a scale on these items. For example, something that is critical would be something you'd have to look at this month. Something maybe that's a number 2 would be this quarter, number 3 would be within 6 months, maybe number 5 would be not time sensitive. So just when there's so many items in that forum right now, and there's no priority set to them,
Right.
that I feel that we would support you better as a committee as an EDO, if we can help, with priorities, or you are telling us what the priorities are from your vantage point, and then it would have a document that makes it easier for you to use.
I think that that's wonderful. I think if we add that scale, and then maybe at our next meeting, if you guys are comfortable with it, we could run through it item by item and assign priorities. Would that be all right?
You bet, because then it just gives a target focus on certain things so that we're not wasting time in today's meeting talking about something that we may not need to look at for 9 months, And then also the third column would be an update since the last meeting. So in that column, if there was no update, then it's just not applicable. But if something's changed, then that way when we get our meeting package, we can just look at that column. And that column will tell us if any of these items have changed or what's been the significant change. And it will give us the opportunity to have, basically turn 50 minutes into 5.
I think that is absolutely brilliant, because the concern that I had with this being a monthly roll-on living document is that by the time you get to December, what's in the column looks way different than what it was in January. And so, okay, perfect.
That was kind of my idea, just in getting that converted over so that we can have something that makes it easier for you, makes it easier for everyone else. And then when a new committee comes in 2 years or whatever, as members change, having this as a living document, they can pick that particular line item based on that code, and they can search it and find the entire 5-year history of that one thing.
Sounds good.
Okay, so that was my, can I?
3 columns or 2?
3.
3.
Yeah, the first one was the item number, the second was the priority, which I would actually make the priority the second last column.
Yep.
And I would make the update the very last column.
So that each line then has when it was last updated, not the document itself. Okay.
We need a motion for you to do that, Bert, or?
Again, I think that if we say, motion to, accept, the, item presented, we could almost change that to, motion, and I ran out of coffee. Motion to have the EDO, make the changes as directed. I think that makes sense.
Perfect. And then if you want, you can send it to me and I can draft it, and then you can just approve it or whatever if you like.
That's wonderful.
Then
Thank
I'll
you.
make the motion to do that.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? So passed. Next is
Wonderful. Thank you, thank you.
information items.
And so for the information items, our standard Government of Alberta reports are there. The exciting information on the three of them is basically those high points. Employment's back up, retail spending is back up, things are opening up, consumer confidence and business confidence seems to be coming back up. Labor market is tightening. And in addition to what's there, I did read an article yesterday from Financial Post. They estimate we're gonna be Canada-wide back down to 5.5% or less for our unemployment rate. And there's apparently right now roughly 900,000 jobs available federally. They did have about I think it was 280,000 new jobs created in February, which was surprised economists that it was kind of that robust. But one of the conversations we've had around the BSN meetings, and we've had it, it came up at all four of them, is the lack of local labor supply. We're really starting to see, especially entry-level positions and kind of those frontline kind of positions, there really seems to be a lack of bodies. And minimum wages are moving from $15 to $20, and different incentives and different hiring things. And we heard that everywhere from the hotels not being able to find room cleaners and front desk staff in Fox Creek, to the home hardware in Barhead not finding enough people to be able to hire. And I know for the county, we once again just reposted and extended our deadline looking for summer staff for the county. So.
Did you have that question?
I did. I was actually asked in our meeting that we had if there's a way to find the numbers for local unemployment rates.
Yes, so I know the best resource that we've got is the labor office that's here in Whitecourt. I'm not sure how often they break out the local number. I know the labor market notes numbers, those are always provincial. I can inquire and see if there's maybe a level that's a little bit closer for us to be able to get local, but often with the labor data, you only see the provincial. I don't know how often they would break it out smaller than that, just because of the sample size.
Okay.
Right, but yeah, we know that it's definitely trending down. It would still, I think we're still above the federal average, but all of the indicators seem to be that all things being equal, labor is going to be getting tighter and tighter.
I think Christy Tutz is actually the contact at Alberta Labor that you need to get a hold of, and she is phenomenal at breaking these down, and she will have that local picture. Either Bert or I could send you her email. I get all of these updates directly from her and continue to get them from her. So that's really good. The other note that I wanted to support the conversation on was that these labor market shortages for our regional businesses are very real. And Careers Next Generation is looking to hire solely for the Whitecourt area another field coordinator, in addition to the one that is regionally based here because of those concerns. So I was approached by them in the past couple of months here about that. And so it's good to note that there are going to be some other resources that can come to the region by the hiring of this additional person. I know that the apprenticeship board as well is concerned about this. So if we can continue to help out in that capacity, or if Bert, if you wanted to call Careers Next Generation to see what their plans are for this area and see how we can support them, that would really help us on the labor market side.
And the Premier gave us a speech at the end of RMA, and the amount of projects going on in the province in the next few years is just incredible. Like Greenview County has $10-point-something billion in projects going. It seems like most of it is up that way. And there's another one down in one of the southern municipalities, solar. It's in the billions of dollars. things are starting to happen. Just wish it had come closer to us.
Great.
Yeah,
It's coming, it's coming.
we're working to push our geology, and that'll get us into the in-committee.
Is that it for information items? Somebody give me a motion for that.
I'll make the motion to accept the information items as information.
Motion on the floor. Any questions? All in favor? So passed.
Excellent. So with that, we basically just have the in-committee stuff left. So if we can get a motion to go in committee at 12:02, and then that would wrap us up for the televised part of the meeting.
Yeah, I'll move that we go to the in-committee session at 12:02.
All in favor? So passed. Let us know when you're done streaming.